few Sundays ago, we met up with Moses when he met up with God out in the wilderness. Moses' life had run out. He was in the middle of the wilderness, trying to rebuild and restart his life, and that's where God met him. Moses, we are told, turned aside, and when he did, Moses encountered God. And in so doing, Moses remembered who he was and who God is, and Moses was renewed to return to Egypt as God's minister of freedom for the Israelites. In another time, in another story in the Bible, we meet up with Elijah, who's burned out on ministry and he's running for his life. He too is out in the wilderness, and that's where God finds him. God is encountered this time no longer in a fire, but in the sound of sheer silence. And Elijah, he too is renewed for ministry as God's prophet. On several occasions, Jesus, we are told, turns aside and goes into a lonely place to pray. We also know that he was driven into the wilderness himself for 40 days. These too were times of remembrance and renewal in Jesus' life. Over and over again and again, we hear stories of God finding people. And quite often, God finds people when we are tired, worn out, maybe even burned out. For the last 5 years, we have hosted an annual event called Discipleship Day. It's been a time for us to focus on our personal and corporate identity as the baptized ministers of God. We have offered a variety of workshops. We have heard inspiring messages from the likes of Scott Gunn. We have focused on offering tools and tips for your work as the baptized ministers of the church. But those times are not this time. Those years are not this year. And while Discipleship Day has always been focused on ministry, this year we want to focus more intently and intensely on the ministers, on you. This is a time of wilderness in which we're living. We've adapted, we've pivoted, we've postponed and zoomed ourselves to the point that many of us are tired, worn out, maybe even burned out. So I don't know that so much this year that we need tools for the toolkit. We need what Moses and Elijah and Jesus needed. We need to be found again by God. We need to remember who we are and whose we are. We need some holy ground to feel and sense again the fire of God's presence and power in our lives. We need holy ground and sacred time to be still and to know God. And after all, our programs and ministries and events are like banging cymbals if we don't have the fire of love. That's what this year's Discipleship Day is about. It's about you. To that end, this year's Discipleship Day will be a little bit different. It is still for clergy and laity who are running programs and leading ministries in your church, but it's also for those who are not. This will not be a lecture. It's not a workshop. This is going to be more of a conversation. This is about our life with God and our life with each other. It's meant to be a gift of holy ground, sacred time, so that you too can turn aside. The added benefit is you don't have to drive anywhere. You don't have to dress up. You can stay at home and even take off your shoes like Moses did. This is our hope, to gather as a diocese to discover with each other how it is with our souls, how it is with our communities, how we may be feeling powerless or creative or even frustrated. To turn aside and to remember who we are, marked as God's beloved children, God's ministers of reconciliation in life, and to turn and reorient ourselves to what matters the most and to be renewed so that we might more clearly and fully answer this question: who will we be for God in this time? I wish we could do this in person. I'm weary of virtual meetings, probably like a lot of you are, and still we use the platforms that we have and trust God to bless them. There is still something good and sacred that happens when we gather, even if it's by Zoom. To lead us, we've engaged one of the most dynamic, compassionate, and passionate leaders in our denomination, Dr. Lisa Kimball. Her accomplishments are many. What I want you to know is this, that she can preach and teach with the best of them. She is an author, she is a professor, she is a visionary in the church. But most of all, Lisa knows herself as a baptized child of God. She sees her life and work through the lens of the water of baptism as a layperson. I know her well enough, I've been with her in enough times together that I can call her a friend. I've rarely met someone who shines with the light of love as she does. Every time I'm around her, I leave kind of thinking, I want what she has. And what she has is the fire of love. It burns brightly in her and through her. The details for Discipleship Day accompany this video. September 19th, 10 o'clock. Don't wait. Register today. Give yourself this gift. Turn aside. And I want to encourage you to invite someone else to join in this time together as well. Let's fill up the screen. Let's fill up our hearts. Let's turn aside and remember God and be nourished and enkindled again to be the disciples that God wants us to be. God's peace be with you. And I hope to see you on the 19th of September.